Head over to BoardGamePrices.com to find the best price on Watergate and thousands of other games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going back to the early 1970s in American history where the president had a lot of controversy around him. One of you is going to play the investigators, and you're going to be trying to link evidence to President Nixon, where the other will play Nixon, trying to sort of gain momentum and get reelected. Today we're taking a look at Watergate. This is brought to us by Capstone Games in North America. This is a two-player card-driven game that's about 30 to 45 minutes. Let me show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. In Watergate, one player will be Nixon. They'll have their own deck of cards, and Nixon is trying to get momentum 5 times. If he does, he will essentially get momentum to get reelected and win the game. And over the course of the game, they're going to be playing cards from their own deck. And the other player will play the investigator. What they're trying to do is get different evidence and get different informants out onto the board face up and link evidence from those informants all the way to Nixon. If they can get 2 of those, then they will win the game. Now at the beginning of the game, the investigator is going to get their own deck, and so is Nixon. And both of these players are going to be playing cards back and forth over a certain amount of rounds throughout the game. Now one player is going to have initiative. They're going to be able to draw 5 cards. The other player is going to be able to draw 4. At the beginning of each round, Nixon will bring out 3 of these evidence tokens from this bag randomly. And they're going to be placed face down. Now Nixon can look at these evidence markers. Essentially, they're one of the 3 different types of evidence. Essentially colors, where it's blue, green, or yellow, or multiples. And Nixon will get to see what these are, but this player will not. There's also 2 tokens. One of these is going to show whatever side this is at the end of the round. That player is going to get the initiative and be able to be the one to draw 5 cards instead of 4 in the next round, which is huge because you get to go first and you get to go last. Where whoever has the red momentum marker on their side at the end will get to add it to their card. Again, if Nixon is able to get 5 of those momentum tokens, then they'll win. Where this player is trying to keep Nixon from getting them, and as they get more and more and more, they'll actually inhibit some abilities that they can trigger as well. So that's what people are trying to do throughout the game. Now when playing a card, you have 2 options. You can either use it for the action, or you can use it for the text, which is usually an event type of thing. If you use it for the actions, this tells you 2. You can use this to move blue evidence 2 towards your side, or any one of those tokens we mentioned. So let's say if we were using that. If they wanted to move the evidence that was blue, they'd say to the Nixon player, I'm going to move the blue evidence too. Now Nixon would look at these and see if any of these are blue. If more than one is, they can choose which one. If none of them is, they say none of them are. And if none of them are blue, then that player that played the card still gets to move one of these tokens. But let's say one of them is blue. This one's actually blue or green. It kind of has 2 of them. So that player could move this like this. Anytime one of these tokens moves, regardless of which player moves it, it always goes face up. So this player now has knowledge as to what evidence is out there this round. So let's say they did that. Now, instead of doing that, they could have said, okay, well, instead of moving the evidence 2, I want to move the momentum 2. And again, that's big because if Nixon gets 5 of these on their side at the end of the game, they win. So this is keeping Nixon from winning. Or they could say, I want the initiative 2. Again, whatever side this is on, it's going to give that player the initiative, which is pretty big in the game, like that. Now, instead of using the action, you can use it for the event. And in this case, it's basically bringing in John Dean as an informant. So you take this little John Dean here, and you'd find the spot on the board with his name, and you'd put it here. Now this means that this informant can now have evidence starting to link back to Nixon, as I showed you, at the beginning of the video. Now, many of these events tell you to remove this card for the game because they're super powerful, which means if you ever run out of cards, which will likely happen, you can shuffle your discard pile, but not the cards that were used in this powerful method. These will be out of the game for good. Now, Nixon's cards do somewhat similar things. Again, they can move the yellow evidence 3 or the tokens 3, or do this event, which essentially is taking this informant and putting it face down. But then again, this is a very strong event, so it would remove that card from the game. So essentially, it would take this Baldwin and put it face down, meaning, well, this player's not going to be able to get any evidence linked from that informant, although there are cards that allow you to flip different informants and things like that too. Now after this player with the initiative has played 5 cards and the Nixon player has played 4 cards, it's the end of the round. What will happen is the initiative, whatever side it's on, is going to go to that player. So since Nixon had the initiative, this player is going to get initiative for the next round. The momentum, in this case, also went to Nixon because it's on their side, so they actually put it here. This player is now 1/5 of the way to victory. Then you're going to place evidence, whoever has the initiative, which may have just changed. So Nixon is going to be able to place this yellow evidence, but they also get to essentially put the a momentum one spot on their track. So in addition to getting evidence, next round they're going to start with the momentum there. So they're going to take this and they can place it on the board. But when Nixon places it face down, which sort of blocks it. So he could try to block evidence going here, maybe blocks this person. So now if they can block this one, this guy's going to be completely blocked out. And once this player, the player with the initiative has placed all their evidence, so will the other player. So this player's going to put this here, it could be on blue or green. They're going to place it here. This one's going to be yellow. Boom. So this player is one yellow piece of evidence or blue piece of evidence of getting one person already linked to Nixon. And then remember, they get two of them and they win the game. And if you set up a new round with evidence, again, with the new initiative, people are going first or second, and you continue doing this until the victory conditions I mentioned. Either Nixon gets 5 momentum tokens or the editor gets 2 informants linking evidence to Nixon. Now here's some more cards from the editor's side. I'm not going to go over all these cards, but feel free to pause the video and check out what all these different cards do. And here's some more cards from the Nixon side. Again, pause the video if you'd like to see what all these do. All right, first thing I like about this is the historical theme. I love games that have historical themes and that I can actually learn something about them as I play the game, and it makes me more curious about history. So I really love realistic themes like this. So man, this was the first thing that really struck me about this game. And to follow that up, I love it when they do this too in games that have historical themes. In the rule book, I mean, almost the second half of the rule book is all pages of historical content, specifically about the people and the events that are on the cards that are in the game, and I just really love that aspect of this. Now this game's really multiple sections of tug of war. You're going to be tugging a war over 3 different evidence every round, plus the 2 tokens of the momentum and the initiative. So I like how you sort of got this sort of tug of war going each round against those different things. I like the abstracted nature of placing the evidence on the board, where the investigators are trying to place them face up and trying to link evidence to the 2 different informants, and Nixon's trying to flip them over, put them on the board, and block them in sort of an abstracted way. And I liked that aspect of the game. I think a clever thing in this is that the evidence comes out at the beginning of each round face down, and the Nixon player gets to look at them, and the investigators have cards that they're not really sure, ooh, I want to play this for the yellow evidence, but I'm not sure if there is any yellow. So if this is my only yellow card, I might be it might not do me any good. But if you do look to get that and there is no yellow, you can still move the tokens and things like that. So it's not the end of the world, but I like that aspect, how Nixon has a little bit more information at that round as to which evidence. But of course, anytime one gets moved, it gets flipped over, which is cool. But I sort of like that aspect of it. I like that the cards that have very powerful events, once you use them, they go out of the game. They're sort of one-time use. That's a cool little thing. It's like, hey, I'm not going to use it for the action. I'm going to do the event, but it's so powerful, it's gone. I can't do it again. This is similar to, I'd say, a card-driven game like Twilight Struggle or 1960 Making the President, but obviously it's much quicker. Even 1960 is a good 2-hour game. This one is 30 minutes, maybe 45 tops. So it gives you that feeling, but it is definitely a lot quicker. So overall, I liked the game. I did have some sort of personal preferences that are negative in this that I want to get to. Now, when you think of card-driven games like this, I already mentioned, Twilight Struggle and Making the 1960 Making the President. Those are 2 very popular card-driven games. Another one, at least probably even closer to this one, is 13 Days, because that one is also in that 45-minute time range. Now, all those other games I just mentioned have a mechanism where when you play a card, it has an event, and if that event's for the other player, they can enact that event before you play your card. Some people hate that. I've played, Making 1960 Making the President in 13 Days with players that absolutely hate that mechanism. They're like, oh geez, this whole game all I'm trying to do is pick a card that doesn't help you. And personally, I actually like that, because when you're looking at cards and you have events that are going to help the other player, usually they have to have something to trigger those events. They usually don't get to do it for free. And if you have multiple events, you're like, oh, let me play this one that looks like it's a really good card for them to do it. They'll spend their little token to be able to do it, and then I'll play the one that really would help them out more, and they're going to be empty and not be able to do it. It adds a layer of depth that I really like. That mechanism, I think, works really well. I missed it in this, because in this game, each player has separate decks, which I think is a cool idea because it's doing something in this genre differently. So, you know, each player, when you have your own decks, and there are only 20 cards per deck, I think if you have that set deck, for me, it made the game feel more predictable. Meaning, I know which cards you have, you know which cards I have. Once we both know what these cards do, it's just a matter of which cards come up when. I know in the back of my head what you could possibly do, you know what I could possibly do, and then it's just a matter of predicting what's going to happen. Where in those other games, you have a shared deck, and you never know who's going to get what card and this and that. And so, for me, I like that they did this because it was different. Personally, I like the other style of that better. However, even though that's a negative for me, that might be an absolute positive for you. If you've played Twilight Struggle or you've played 1960 and you're like, oh, I hate that mechanism that they can activate the card that I'm playing, then you're probably gonna like this even better. For me, it was the opposite. This game is definitely more streamlined than its predecessors, the ones I just mentioned. But I feel because it misses those other things, it has less depth. So yeah, it's faster, but it has less depth. But in the same time as, say, a 13 Days, I feel like that's more comparable to this. But I feel like that one, because of what I just mentioned of those cards and activating different things, that one I think has more depth than this. This is a good, quick game where you're just, tug of wars. I'm looking at the events. I know what you can do. You know what I can do. Let's do this. It's more with the abstracted blocking nature and So I liked it. I loved the history of it. I enjoyed it. But there are other games in this genre that I liked better. But that doesn't mean that you won't, because again, you should hopefully know based upon what I liked and what I didn't, whether you'll like this better or not than those other ones. If you've never played those other ones and you like history games, you like card games, then check this one out because it's a small, quick game that has packs a bit of a punch, and that is Watergate. Did you miss the Game Topper 2.0 Kickstarter? Have no fear, it's not too late to get in on the ultimate gaming accessory. Convert your table into a high-quality gaming table with a fully portable Game Topper system and take advantage of some of the best 3mm premium gaming mats in the industry. New styles, new sizes, and new accessories can be yours. Upgrade every game you play by late backing now at GameToppersLLC.com.